Welcome, everyone, to the latest edition of Airing It Out, Files from Leahy's broadcast booth. I'm your host, John Leahy. We are delighted to have you along for the podcast once again this week. Thank you for tuning in, not just tonight, but all throughout the time that we've had the podcast on. I'd like to just let you know that we have a website for the podcast. You can find it at leahystorytelling.com. All the episodes that we've ever done are there. We have a blog, we have a video area, we have a rating area, and all kinds of neat things. So we invite you to check that out. It's at leahystorytelling.com, and we have new content out pretty much every Wednesday. You can find us on Spotify on the audio end, and there's a few other places on the website. So please feel free to check that out, and we look forward to coming on with new episodes weekly. And my guest this week, a very special friend. She's an author. I met her last summer at a book signing out in Holyoke, Mass. We've had her on the podcast before, and she has a new book out. And it's my good friend, Sarah Crowne. She's with us tonight. Sarah, thanks so much for being here. It's great to spend some time with you here tonight.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be back on.
Well, it's wonderful to have a chance to talk with you about your great literary work. And, when we met last summer, you introduced me to your new book. It was new at the time, All These Threads of Time. And I'm having a really wonderful time reading it. Now, I have to tell you, I'm up to chapter 14. I'm not quite as far along as I would have hoped to be by this time. But it's really a tremendous book. It's a murder mystery. And I wondered if you could just kind of review for our audience kind of what that book is about and how you came to write it.
Sure, yes. So, All These Threads of Time is a time travel speculative thriller, and it's about a teenage girl named Sylvie who basically risks everything to travel through time to solve her sister's murder and to prevent a serial killer from destroying more lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And she, like I said, I'm only up to the 14th chapter, but it's really fascinating that she develops this ability to time travel. So, is it something that she just kind of stumbled upon, or did she always knew that she kind of had that ability? How did that all kind of fit in?
Yes, so you're on chapter 14. I don't want to ruin anything
Okay.
for you, but it is an inherited ability. So it's something that she's inherited from her family, and she doesn't know it until it starts to happen to her in the story. And as you continue to read, you'll learn more about what set it off.
Okay. And the interesting thing was not only did the murder of her sister happen, but at the same time her father also disappeared. So
Yeah.
she's got a couple of things going on that she's trying to figure out, right? So it's wonderful. It's really dragging me in, you know?
I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah,
It was so much fun to write.
absolutely. And it's based in the late 80s, and it's also based in a New England town. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. So I actually chose to set it in the late 80s for a lot of reasons.
Mhm.
But mostly because I felt it would be a lot harder to catch the serial killer in that time where there was, less camera surveillance and that sort of thing. I did a lot of research and I made sure to set it really just right before DNA technology and that sort of thing became really, prominent in many different police stations and that sort of thing. So I wanted it to, really have that difficulty of finding who it was. And I was a child in the 80s as well. I always say the best of both worlds. I was a kid in the 80s, a teen in the 90s. So I love the decade as well. So there's
Absolutely.
definitely that love for those times as well.
Absolutely. And, it kind of reminds you a little bit of the Stephen King kind of the thriller type of stuff,
Mhm.
that kind of keeps you on the edge of your seat. Is it ever revealed in the book what state in New England this happened in?
Yes, it is in the northeast corner of Connecticut.
Oh, Connecticut. Oh,
Yes,
okay.
it's a
Uh,
fictional town, but Low
uh,
Ridge, but it is in Connecticut. Yes.
oh, okay. Well, I can't wait to finish the book, and I've really, really fallen in love with it. These types of books are not the type I usually read. So for me to really be interested in this is really saying something. So where can people first of all purchase the book if they want to look into it?
Sure, yes, it's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, bookshop.org, and then you can also go to my website, check out my events to see where I'm, signing them in person, or I also do sell direct as well.
Well, I'm happy to say that I have a signed copy. I want to thank you for signing this.
Sure.
It makes it so much more authentic. Well, I know you have a new book out, and that's the substance of what I wanted to talk with you tonight. It's called Tune In. Is that correct?
It is, yes.
All right. So tell us about this book. You know, kind of the plot, what it's about, and how you got the idea to kind of write this next one.
Sure. So Tune In is a science fiction techno thriller. And it's about a pop star who, while searching for the truth about her mother's mysterious death, she dies on stage during one of her concerts. She discovers not only her own telekinetic abilities, but a powerful organization that's trying to weaponize her. So while, all these threads of time is really a lot about grief and the power of choice and the longing to go back and change the past, Tune In explores a related but very modern question, and it's more about what does it take to claim your voice in a noisy world. So both stories focus on agency, but they're told through very different angles.
Oh wow! So that's great. So it's you've got kind of a music element in it too, right?
Yeah.
It's so tell us, how did you kind of get the idea to write this type of book with this type of setting and so forth?
Sure.
Hmm.
So before, as you know, I'm an attorney.
Mhm.
But before becoming an attorney, I earned a degree in psychology, and I spent about a decade working with young children and studying child development. And I'm also a lifelong science fiction fan who also grew up on MTV and
Uh-huh.
pop culture. So music has always been a huge, role in my life. And so the idea for Tune In really grew from this simple but unsettling question of, what if you weren't in control of your own minds? That was just something that just kept coming into my mind. What if you weren't in control of your own mind? I did have family members that sadly passed away with Alzheimer's. And so I think some of that, sort of fear or thinking about that came from that. But I also, having this psychology background and child development background and um, loving music, really thought about how so much of who we are is shaped by our experiences, our genetics, the cultural messages that we absorb every day, in media and social media, particularly. So I really wanted to write a story that empowers people to reconnect with their inner voice. And I just thought that a techno thriller about a pop star somehow felt like the perfect way to explore that.
Absolutely. And, you mentioned Alzheimer's. My father died of that disease. And, to go through that process, I think you wind up learning a lot about, how to, relate with people and go through that process. And it's really a sad thing. And, it sounds like you're kind of bringing awareness to that kind of a situation. So I guess that played maybe a small role in
It
your.
did. And it was really where the question came from. There's no one with Alzheimer's in the book, but it was just that idea of not being in feeling in control of your mind. Not, there is, Nikki has some memory loss that is involved in the book. She, basically she's this teen pop star living in a world where everyone else decides who she is. They decide her image, her music that she performs, but even her memories and her self-worth. So it's, really her journey as she's investigating her mom's death. As I said, her mom mysteriously
Mhm.
dies on stage suddenly. That she really comes to terms with these secrets that have been around her of people that have been controlling her.
Well, let's talk about some of the characters in the book. Can you identify some of the characters and how you went about developing them?
Yes. So Nikki Scott is the pop star. She's 17.
Hmm.
She does have some memory loss from an accident that she had a year before. She lives, as I said, a very high-paced world that is surrounded by so many cool characters. It was so much fun to write this world because it just lended itself to so many different characters. So, one of the other main characters is her brother Ethan, who she is her estranged brother. He's in special forces. He's been away on missions. He comes back after mom dies, and she convinces him to investigate with
Hmm.
her.
Hmm.
And that was really such a great balance. He's such a great character in the sense of, he's tough, but he's funny, and but he's dealing with his own PTSD and like very deep things as well. But together, they're hilarious. They go on this adventure, and I really enjoy writing about that sibling bond here. And then, of course, there's Nolan, who's the CEO of Harmony Corp, which is a music tech company that sponsors her music. There's also her, manager and assistant Ava, who is got secrets of her own and is, sort of like a diva in her own right as well.
Hmm.
And then the fans. I mean, I just involved so much about the fans and that idea of fanatic fans and fame and, you know, there may be a stalker involved in the book. And so I really, wanted to touch on that entire world.
Well, that's fascinating, and I can't wait to scoop up a copy of it for myself because I think it'll be the perfect complement to all these threads of time. How long did it take you to write the book?
Yeah, this one was hard.
Yeah.
Well, I always have a hard time plotting. I plot everything and plan it, ahead of time. And I often, go down rabbit holes of research. So I did a lot of research for Tune In, particularly because it does deal with some, even in its fun, pop flair, dark murder, techno thriller mystery, there's a lot of deep psychology embedded within the book. So I did a lot of research, particularly on behavioral psychology. I read a lot about B.F. Skinner and operant conditioning and
Hmm.
advertising psychology, and really looking at all the ways that behavior can be shaped through repetition and reinforcement. And then, of course, I'm inspired by like classic science fiction writers like George Orwell, who always, explored how systems influence individuals. So it took me honestly a year of of just research before I even started plotting the story. And I think it takes me so long because, I try to stay open-minded, but
Hmm.
I'm also very skeptical.
Hmm.
And so when I'm researching, it takes me so much time because I'm really, counter looking at everything and asking questions of myself and sort of going on that journey as a writer on my own and learning. And, I had this professor once. I always tell people this story. When I was in college studying psychology, and the lesson I took from him was that just because something is in a book or even in a research article doesn't make it true.
Hmm.
You really have to do your own research and come to your conclusions through all of the gathered data and facts that you have in front of you. And so I think you know, when I'm writing, I always have that in the back of my mind. So I kind of get on this tangent of research. But at the same time, I want to explore my imagination, which science fiction really helps me to do that through the power of story. Um, but by the time I got through that investigating, it was a good like another year of just plotting it, getting that pop star. I mean, this is a very different world. I'm not a pop star, I have to also think about like what that world would be like and seek out people that might know what that world is like and, ask questions. And I'm really, happy with the result. The actual writing was once I'm plotted everything, the writing goes very fast. So the actual writing was like 4 months. But of course, then there was editing. I ended up cutting something like 40,000 words from this book. I overwrote it, to be
Wow.
honest.
Wow.
And yeah, so then the editing was like a whole other like 8 months. It was double the time of writing it just to narrow it down to the vision that I originally had.
Well, do you find that being an attorney that helps you in your research process? Attorneys are always preparing and researching. Does that make it easier for you to research, given that you do a lot of that as an attorney anyway?
It does and it doesn't.
Yeah.
So it's very helpful in the sense that I have the skills where I can find the answers, I know where to look, but I can also become obsessed with it and get off track of the story. So, I always have to pull myself back to the process and say, okay, like I'm not writing a dissertation on psychology here. I'm writing a fictional science fiction book. So I have to remind myself to let my imagination go wild and really bring it back to, you know, especially in a mystery and in a thriller of who the opponent is, why are they doing this to the hero, and what is their plan? Because everything about how I write is about that. I think that the stronger the opponent, the stronger the hero, the more the hero can rise and learn and grow. So everything is based on how are they attacking the hero.
That's fascinating. And what you're describing is kind of a parallel in my own life because I'm working on my next book as well. And I'm collecting audio interviews from colleagues that go back many, many years. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to listen to all of these audio interviews. And I've got a notebook. I'm going to put each colleague will have their own page, and I'm going to listen and kind of gather information. And I'm kind of hoping that once the information is gathered out, I'll have a really good sense of how to put the book together and how to lay it out and how it's going to be organized. It kind of sounds similar to what you worked on there.
Yes, absolutely. And I think too, you need that time to sort of process everything that you've researched and learned and really kind of let it swim in your head a little bit. And yeah, I needed that time with this book. There were a lot of, the speculative science fiction part of this book is doing a lot of heavy work in the background. And I didn't want it to be overwhelming to the reader. I wanted it to be a, fast moving story, to be exciting, to be in this world, to keep you on the edge of your seat and not really bog you down with these scientific, explanations. So probably for all the research I did, there's a very tiny bit that's actually in the story. But I think just having that understanding of it like helped me bring this world to life. And I think that, despite the fact that the hero, Nikki Scott, is a pop star, her character, what I'm really proud of is that her character is someone that everyone can relate to because she's in this world where everyone's telling her who she is. And you don't have to be a pop star to experience that.
Mhm.
Whether it's family or school or careers or the media or, algorithms in your social media, whatever, there's constantly constant forces that are trying to shape our identities, every single day. And so this book, hence the title, Tune In, is about tuning into that inner voice and really deciding who you are from, who you truly are deep inside and not what everyone's telling you who you are.
Absolutely. And, I think combining psychology and science fiction, I think is fascinating because they're two very deep areas, right? And if you can kind of pull those two things together and make it meaningful to the reader, I think you're going to have an explosive book on your hands.
Oh, thank you. I hope so. It did debut at number one, Amazon top new releases this
Mhm.
past weekend in the science fiction mystery category.
Well,
So really excited about that.
yeah,
Yes.
congratulations. Now, what have you done so far to kind of promote the book? I know you're real heavy into the book tours. Have you started up book tours here, or how are you going about promoting the book right now?
Yes. So I have done another podcast prior to this one. I have another one planned
Hmm.
after this one. And I do have many events scheduled. So actually, my first event is February 7th at an indie bookstore called Pourings and Passages. And I'm really excited about this. It's in my hometown of Killingly, Connecticut.
Hmm.
And the owner is actually my school librarian. So, the
Oh,
library I
nice.
used to like hide away in as a kid and, read books. He runs the store, so it's just really, personal and awesome to be able to debut the book tour there. But I have a lot of events planned and still planning every day. So, I love meeting readers whether it's at a bookstore or a library or, some other event, because I just really think that it's the power of story, and just sharing that passion with other people. I meet so many creative people that come and talk to me, whether they're writers or artists or musicians or filmmakers, or just trying to find their passion. There's so many different people that I have awesome conversations with. Um, and for example, I met you,
Yeah.
at we were both there signing books. And so I think that, more, obviously promoting the book is really important, but I'm really also just about the journey and the adventure and meeting readers and sharing that love of story is more important to me.
Absolutely. And you and I have had this conversation before about storytelling, right? I mean, really, we all have a story to tell. Life is about the stories from, beginning to end. And we've kind of talked about the importance of that and how, kind of blessed we are that we have the chance to go out and sell our stories to the world. And I really think that it's something that can't be understated. I think that we all have a story to tell, and you've done a wonderful job with your books and being able to promote them to the world. So just maybe a little thought about how important storytelling is.
Yeah, I mean, for me, storytelling's everything, right? It's how I make sense of the world. It's how I've always made sense of the world. I've been making up stories as long as I can remember, since I was a little kid. I always feel, sort of bad when I think back of, growing up, my teachers, I had terrible handwriting. And I would fill notebooks, of novels and like share them with them. And, they would say, well, I would love to read this, but I can't read your writing. And so, when we finally got like the Apple computer and the floppy disk, I was the first one that, got to type my stories, and the teachers were like, well, we can finally read it. But yeah, so I mean, I just think it's so important because it really helps us to learn about ourselves and learn about the world, to travel to places and meet people we may not otherwise have that experience with. It gives us a different perspective. When you're reading, it's like you're experiencing that in real life. Your mind doesn't know. I mean, obviously we know it's you're reading a book, but when you're
Mhm.
reading, psychologically, your mind is experiencing that as if you were there. And that can really impact people and help them to problem solve or maybe think about their own lives or work through something they've been trying to work through or just be entertained, right? Just have a good story to sit back and be entertained and have fun. And, I think it's about that too.
Absolutely. And, in my own case, I love to write, but music is a big part of my life too. I'm a musician as well. And so that's really a wonderful way, to get your story out there. There's book signings, but there's also open mics where you can go and play. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to do that. But I'm curious, we might have talked about this on the last podcast, but when you were growing up, you've always had this love of telling stories. Um, when you were in school and also in your family life growing up, uh, were the people in your life, were the significant people in your life, how encouraging were they, knowing that you have this love of stories? How encouraging was your social group?
They were so encouraging.
Yeah.
They really humored me a lot. I was sort of a funny, weird kid in the sense that, I loved stories so much. I didn't just want to write stories. I wanted to act them out. I wanted to perform. Probably my obsession with, and why I wrote a pop star book is I wanted to be a pop star when I was a kid. I so wanted to be a pop star. I mean, I filled notebooks with song lyrics. I taught myself how to play piano with two hands. I used to, take radios and like I had like a karaoke machine, with two tape decks, and then I had two separate radios. And I would like play music with on my piano, like one track on one tape, and then I would tape over it with another tape and make up songs and all of this. And I would like perform it in front of my family. And here's the funny part is that I can't sing.
Oh.
Can't sing at all. But I would, make the curtain in the living room and put on this show. And so if it wasn't like a pop star concert, it was a play or acting out a story or, hey, hear this new poem I wrote, or, here's my new collection of short stories, or, whatever it was. And, my dad, when I was very little, he told me so many stories. Like he was just such a lover of stories. Every time that, we spent time together, whether it was like long walks in the woods or playing at home or whatever, it was some story that involved me as the hero in some way. And my mom, likewise, we didn't have like a lot of money growing up. And so, but she made sure always that I had the tools I needed, whether that was a word processor or later on a computer, whatever I needed to be able to share my work with the world. And that really meant everything. But aside from my family, actually, there were teachers and there were friends that were very encouraging as well. I had this wonderful English teacher, Miss Carol Rose, who sadly passed away. And she's, signed my yearbook, my high school yearbook. I expect to read your novel one day.
That's awesome.
And
That's awesome.
so
You
they
know,
were always so encouraging.
absolutely. When I was growing up, I wanted to be the television voice of the Boston Bruins when I was growing up, and
Mhm.
I would close my bedroom door. We're telling stories here, right?
Yes, yes.
I would close my bedroom door, and I had a little black and white TV, which was common back in the early '70s when I was like 7 years old, and I would turn the volume down on the little black and white TV, and I would announce the game. And
Yes.
I was always fearful of what people would say. I never really thought that people would be encouraging. But one day my dad walked by the room and he heard me doing it, and he didn't discourage me.
Mhm.
He said if that's what you want to do it and be the best version of yourself that you can be. So
Mhm.
all you need is really one person to believe in you, right? And it really
True.
takes off. Yep.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
with the new book, Tune In. You mentioned that there's the pop star element to it. How much did music videos and like MTV? How much did that influence your ideas to put those thoughts together?
Oh my gosh, everything. So, Nikki Scott is not based on any one pop star. She is a love letter to all pop stars. There are aspects to her and her life and her music that are just from pop stars that I loved growing up, still love to this day. There's actually a lot of little Easter eggs within the book. So if you are a music buff, you'll see them. Some are outwardly, it might be a title to a chapter or, a specific, like they might actually mention a specific song or something. But a lot of it too is just in dialogue. It might be like a song lyric that a famous pop star sang, and it's just in dialogue in some way. So I won't give it away, but it's there.
Great.
Um, yeah, so I mean, that's what was really so much fun. It was so much fun to write because I could really get into this world that I'm not, like I said, I'm not a pop star. But I can understand as an attorney, I can understand, as an attorney that works for a corporation, what it's like to be under pressure or to have to meet deadlines or, that sort of thing. And I think obviously a pop star has to meet deadlines as well and is under a lot of pressure. So I could relate to her in that way.
We're talking with Sarah Crowne. She is the author of All These Threads of Time and her new release, which is out now. Tune in. And I got to tell you now, you say you're not a pop star, but anybody who's in a Debbie Gibson video classifies as a pop star. So
Oh, thank you.
I wonder if you could just take us through that video again and how that all came to be.
Yes, that was literally such a dream come true. So, one of my favorite, if not the most favorite pop star I had growing up was Debbie Gibson. And because I always admired her hard work and the way that, how she wrote her own music, she produced her own music, she was engineering it herself in her home studio. And as a young girl, that was just so inspiring to me. Like,
Hmm.
wow, look at this, you know, girl who's, just a little bit older than me doing this, like on her own, writing her own songs and producing them. I just thought that was amazing. And obviously the song spoke to me. And the years went by and I grew up, whatever, time goes by. And I ended up going, seeing that she was coming around for a concert, and I thought, oh wow, like I would love to go. I never had the opportunity to go when I was a kid. It would be so amazing to go. So I brought my daughter. We did the whole like meet and greet. We got to, there's probably, hopefully not, a video of me somewhere in the internet universe on somebody's phone of me dancing on stage. We actually got to sit like on stage next to her as she played the piano. And like the last song, the fans that were on the stage got to like dance and sing with her. And I thought that was the end of like, oh, dream come true. I got to experience Liverpool. And well, anyway, she ended up having this contest for her new song, Legendary, which is all about what it means to be legendary, what it means. And what that really means is, an everyday hero, a person who's, whether it's an artist or a firefighter or, just someone in the community, really helping other people and going for their passion and giving it their all to not just empower themselves, but to empower other people as well. And when I first heard the song, I just thought, wow, this is such a beautiful song. It reminded me so much of what we go through as writers, right?
Hmm.
I think that it looks very, may look very glamorous, oh, to be a writer. And it's, but it's very hard to write a novel and to discover a story. I think it can be one of the hardest things in the world because you're developing a whole world and other characters, and you're often doing this with no guarantee anyone will ever even read it or like it for that matter.
Absolutely.
So anyway, so she was having this contest, which I didn't know about. My daughter heard about it and entered me and wrote this essay of how, why she thought her mom was legendary. And so one day I was just like going on Instagram and I saw that I was tagged by Debbie Gibson. And I was like, what is this, a joke? Like a scam or something? Like, what is this? And there was my picture. And then I was a finalist in this music video contest to be in her new video. And I ended up, finding out how I had been entered, and I was just so excited. That was enough right there, just that I made the top 10. I was like, wow, that's super
Yeah.
cool. But then, very quickly within a couple of days, I learned that I was chosen. I was on the phone, with her video director, and he was giving me all kinds of directions of, what to do. And we filmed everything at home
Mhm.
ourselves. And, but it was very specific directions, like stand in front of this certain, white wall outside with a canopy, with the light hitting just this way. And I just thought, oh my gosh, where am I going to find wall with a canopy? Like I'm thinking about places in my town. But I ended up finding it actually at a local community college where I went to community college. And we filmed the shots, and then the video came out. The rest is history. It was just such an honor. What was so special about it is that she, wrote this special introduction piano piece and it did where she spoke over the music about what it means to be legendary. And she featured all of these amazing people, that are helping animals and firefighters and, fighting against drunk driving and just all of these wonderful heroes. Um, and just to see that and to be a part of that, it's like that little girl in me, that looked up to her and her talent felt very seen, from artist to artist. Like I see your passion for what you do, and I'm honoring that. And that's really what was so special about it.
So, if people want to see that video, what's the best way? Can they go to your website or is it on YouTube? Where can people take
Yes.
that in?
On YouTube.
Okay. All
And I
right.
would just Google Debbie Gibson, Legendary. The video will come up. It's an awesome song, very inspiring. Once it gets in your head, it won't leave. So you'll
Yeah.
love
I've actually seen it, and it's really tremendous. So I got to ask you, your book tours often include a lot of stops in New England,
Yes.
obviously down in Connecticut, where you're located. But do you have any plans to come back up here to Massachusetts at all to promote the new book?
I do. I have a lot of events planned right now, and gosh, I can't even remember them all. But they're spread about through Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island at the moment.
Okay, and by going to your website, people will be able to see, exactly where to connect with you and go to these
Yes.
live events.
Yes.
That's great. Well, we also had a chance to cross paths in Warwick, Rhode Island, back a few months ago, and that's a wonderful, wonderful bookstore. They do a really
Yes.
amazing job down there, and I actually had a signing there myself, and they really do a great job.
They do. I love it there. It was actually my first book signing at a
hmm
Barnes and Noble was Warwick, so it's always very special to me for that reason.
Well, that's great. So I know that you're in the process of really promoting Tune In. It's out. It's brand new. Are you going to take a break after this, or are you going to write some more?
So I am still writing stories as we speak. I am always
Wow.
writing stories. So I'm actually working on two books, well, sort of three, but I have plans first, all novels aside, for a poetry book.
hmm
I've been writing poetry my whole life. And I'm really all about, I love honoring where we've come from and where we are and where we're going and, sort of looking at that progression. So I'm doing a book about a portrait of a poet, and it will include poems from very young, that I wrote as a child up until now. And I just thought that would be a really cool collection to do. It's something I always dreamed about doing when I was younger. And I thought, why not? I can do it now. So let's do it. So I am working on that.
hmm
But I'm also working on another thriller story. And also working on a fantasy story, which that one's going to take a while. It's, going into another genre for me.
hmm
And it's, I've been working very closely with my developmental editor on that, and it'll definitely it needs some time because learning a whole new genre is a lot. But I am happy with the progress it has. And so hopefully two more novels coming, probably the thriller first, the fantasy next. Um, the fantasy story, I really wanted to write something. I mean, all of my books are very clean and, they're young adult books, but I wanted to have a book that even younger children could read, from as young as 8 or 9, all the way up to
Yeah.
99.
Yeah.
And, where all these threads of time, for example, has a lot of, deeper concepts or things that I think it's better for an older teenager, like 14 and up probably, because there is some teen pregnancy, there is some child abuse. It's not like in your face, but it's there, it's mentioned. It's a
Yeah.
conversation that a parent might want to have with their child. So I really wanted to, I want to write a story that is less dark, but a lot of fun too. So I am working on that. So yeah,
That's
I'm always working on stuff.
That's excellent. Now, Sarah, do you have any thoughts or plans about maybe putting your book in digital form? Because I actually look for all these threads of time digitally through iTunes, and I didn't see it. I do have the hard copy, which I'm very, very blessed to have. But is there any thought really to making the books digital so they can be purchased online?
So they are. All of the books are digital. So you can get ebooks to all of my books
Okay,
on
okay.
Amazon, and there's also an audio book for all these threads of time through Audible.
hmm Okay, so yeah, that brings up a great question. How did the audiobook process work? It wasn't your voice, was it? It was someone else?
No, it was someone else. It was a trained actress.
Okay.
So yes, Samantha Leal. She is amazing. Wonderful person, wonderful actress. So what I did is I just used ACX. I allowed auditions for, various voice actors to send in auditions. when I first put it up there, like it was kind of quiet for a day or two, and I didn't really get anything. And I thought, oh, I don't know. And I just got busy. I kind of forgot about it, to be honest.
Mhm.
And then like a few more days went by, and I opened my email, and there were literally over 100 auditions,
Wow.
different actors. And I thought, oh my gosh. And it was just so exciting, to listen through them and really hear the story come to life. But it was Samantha's voice, the way that she really portrayed the characters, and she put so much like love and emotion into them that I was just hooked. I was just like, I have to have this actress do, read my story and act it out for the audio. And it worked out. She was available. She was, I sent her the book. It was a awesome process. I mean, talk about, I always wanted to be a pop star. Like this was as close as I could get to being in like a recording studio in the sense of acting sort of like a producer because she would record bits and she'd send it to me and I'd listen. And, most of the time she knocked it right out of the park. There were little tweaks here and there we had to fix. Some my fault where I actually found a typo in my book where she read it exactly, and I was like, "Oh wait, oh no, that's me. There's a typo. I've got to fix that." So yeah, it was awesome, and to be able to hear the story after, for me is the closest I'll ever get to experiencing it the way that a reader does.
Mhm.
Because for me, the characters come to me, the idea for the story's in my head. I spend a lot of time plotting it out, thinking about it, frontwards, backwards, every which way you can look at the story and the plot. You'll see with the ending of All These Threads of Time, it is a twist ending. I'll give you that.
All right.
A warning up front. And then the time writing it and working with, editors that are editing it and, that whole process. By the time it comes out, I mean, it's almost like I've got lines of the book memorized.
Hmm.
And so to hear someone just read it and to not have to like be engaged in the process, but just enjoy the story was really cool.
Now, do you have plans for the new book to be on an audiobook as well? Tune in.
Yes, I do plan on hopefully Samantha's available
Yeah.
and to have an audio for tune in as well. Right now, I'm just very focused on releasing, because I am an independent publisher. I do all of this, on my own. And so I'm really just focused on getting the paperback out there, the ebook out there, and then hopefully within the next 6 months or so, do the audio book. I'll probably do eventually, as I did for All These Threads of Time, there's a special hardcover edition that has a lot of special, extras. There's, you know, lost scenes, there's recipes from the book, there's book club questions, there's all kinds of, extras in that more collector edition.
Well, that's fantastic. I can't speak glowingly enough about your work. I'm really enjoying this book, All These Threads of Time, and I apologize. I'm not deeper into it. I work
It's
gets
okay.
in work gets in the way. I planned on reading this on the flight out to California. I did read some, but I'm really enjoying the book, and I can't wait to get the new book. And I'll always be a supporter of your work. I think you're wonderful, and I really appreciate you spending some time with us here, Sarah, tonight. You're always welcome on this podcast.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much for having me. I love chatting with you and your viewers about story. And it's just always such a pleasure to see you and to come on your podcast.
Well, thank you so much. I will be writing the new book. My new book is called Hat Tricks and Home Runs, and
Mhm.
as soon as hockey season is over, I'm going to have all the audio done. So I'm going to pull it all together. I'm going to write all spring, all summer long, into the fall. I hope to have it done by Christmas time. 2027 is going to be my next book tour, and I hope that our paths will cross on another book
Yes,
tour. And
absolutely.
even if they don't, I'm still going to try and get to your events, and you're always welcome to mine as well.
Of course. Thank
Uh,
you.
all right. Well, Sarah, thank you again for being here. And by the way, before we go, one last thing. Can you just remind our audience once again where to find you and where to purchase your books?
Yes. So you can find all of my books on Amazon. You can also find them at barnesandnoble.com or bookshop.org, which is really great because it will support any indie bookstore that you want to support through that website. You can also go to sarahcrownebooks.com and check out my events. I travel all over New England. Sometimes I venture out of New England when I can, signing, to sign books and to meet people. And you could also contact me through my website. I'll also do signed copies direct as well.
And that's Crowne
Yes.
if you're going to do a search. Sarah, thanks again so much. We appreciate it, and we look forward to staying in touch. And best of luck with the new book and the upcoming book tour.
Thank you so much.
All right. Sarah Crowne joining us on the podcast this week, and we invite you to stay with us. We'll have another episode next week. You've been listening to Airing It Out Files from Leahy's broadcast booth.